was at the mic check 1 to 3. Okay, mic's working. Okay, here we go. Acts chapter 1. Dear Theophilos, in the first book, I wrote about everything Yah-Usha set out to do and teach until the day when, after giving instructions through the Ruach HaKodesh to the emissaries whom he had chosen, he was taken up into heaven. After his death, he showed himself to them and gave many convincing proofs that he was alive. During a period of 40 days they saw him, and he spoke with them about the kingdom of God. At one of these gatherings, he instructed them not to leave Yerushalayim, but to wait for what the Father promised, which you heard about from me. For Yochanan used to immerse people in water, but in a few days you will be immersed in the Ruach HaKodesh. When they were together, they asked him, Lord, are you at this time going to restore self-rule to Israel? He answered, You don't need to know the dates or the times. The Father has kept these under his own authority, but you will receive power when the Ruach HaKodesh comes upon you. You will be my witnesses both in Yerushalayim and in all Yehudah and Shomoron, indeed to the ends of the earth. After saying this, he was taken up before their eyes, and a cloud hid him from their sight. As they were staring into the sky after him, suddenly they saw two men dressed in white standing next to them. The men said, You Galileans, why are you standing staring into space? This Yah-Usha, who has been taken away from you into heaven, will come back to you in just the same way as you saw him go into heaven. Then they returned to the Shabbat, walked distance from the Mount of Olives to Yerushalayim. After entering the city, they went to the upstairs room where they were staying. The names of the emissaries were Kepha, Yaakov, Yochanan, Andrew, Philip, Thoma, Bartholomew, Mattityahu, Yaakov ben Happai, Shimon the Zealot, and Yehuda ben Yaakov. These all devoted themselves single-mindedly to prayer, along with some women, including Miriam, Yah-Usha's mother, and his brothers. During this period, when the group of believers numbered about 120, Kepha stood up and addressed his fellow believers. Brothers, the Ruach HaKodesh spoke in advance through David about Yehudah, and these words of the Tanakh had to be fulfilled. He was guide for those who arrested Yah-Usha. He was one of us, and had been assigned a part in our work. With the money Yehudah received for his evil deed, he bought a field, and there he fell to his death. His body swelled up and burst open, and all his insides spilled out. This became known to everyone in Yerushalayim, so they called that field Hakal Dema, which in their language means field of blood. Now, said Kepha, it is written in the book of Psalms, Let his estate become desolate, let there be no one to live in it, and let someone else take his place as a supervisor. Therefore, one of the men who have been with us continuously throughout the time the Lord Yah-Usha traveled around among us, from the time Yochanan was immersing people until the day Yah-Usha was taken up from us, one of these must become a witness with us to his resurrection. They nominated two men, Joseph bar Saba, surnamed Justus, and Mattityahu. Then they prayed, Lord, you know everyone's heart. Show us which of these two you have chosen to take over the work and the office of emissary that Yehuda abandoned to go where he belongs. Then they drew lots to decide between the two, and the lot fell to Metityahu, so he was added to the 11 emissaries. Chapter 2. The festival of Shavuot arrived, and the believers all gathered together in one place. Suddenly there came a sound from the sky, like the roar of a violent wind, and it filled the whole house where they were sitting. Then they saw what looked like tongues of fire, which separated and came to rest on each one of them. They were all filled with the Ruach HaKodesh, and began to talk in different languages, as the Spirit enabled them to speak. Now there were staying in Yerushalayim religious Jews from every nation under heaven. When they heard the sound, a crowd gathered. They were confused, because each one heard the believers speaking in his own language. Totally amazed, they asked, "How is this possible? Aren't all these people who are speaking from the Galilee? How is it that we hear them speaking in our native languages? We're Parthians, Medes, Elamites, residents of Mesopotamia, Yehuda, Cappadocia, Pontus, Asia, Phrygia, Pamphylia, Egypt, the parts of Libya near Cyrene, visitors from Rome, Jews by birth and proselytes, Jews from Crete and from Arabia. How is it that we hear them speaking in our own languages about the great things God has done?" Amazed and confused, they all went on asking each other, "What can this mean?" But others made fun of them and said, "They've just had too much wine." Then Kepha stood up with the 11 and raised his voice to address them. "You Judeans, and all of you staying here in Yerushalayim, let me tell you what this means. Listen carefully to me. These people aren't drunk, as you suppose. It's only 9 in the morning. No, this is what was spoken about through the prophet Yoel. Yahweh says, 'In the last days, I will pour out from my spirit upon everyone. Your sons and daughters will prophesy. Your young men will see visions. Your old men will dream dreams. Even on my slaves, both men and women, will I pour out from my spirit in those days, and they will prophesy. I will perform miracles in the sky above, and signs on the earth below, blood, fire, and thick smoke. The sun will become dark, and the moon blood, before the great and fearful day of Yahweh comes. And then whoever calls on the name of Yahweh will be saved.' Men of Israel, listen to this. Yah-Usha from Nazareth was a man demonstrated to you to have been from God by the powerful works, miracles, and signs that God performed through him in your presence. You yourselves know this. This man was arrested in accordance with God's predetermined plan and foreknowledge, and through the agency of persons not bound by the Torah. You nailed him up on a stake and killed him. But God has raised him up and freed him from the suffering of death. It was impossible that death could keep its hold on him, for David says this about him: I saw Yahweh always before me, for he is at my right hand, so that I will not be shaken. For this reason my heart was glad, and my tongue rejoiced. And now my body too will live, and in the certain hope that you will not abandon me to Sheol, or let your Holy One see decay. You have made known to me the ways of life. You will fill me with joy by your presence. Brothers, I know I can say to you frankly that the patriarch David died and was buried. His tomb is with us to this day. Therefore, since he was a prophet and knew that God had sworn on oath to him that one of his descendants would sit on his throne, he was speaking in advance about the resurrection of the Messiah, that it was he who was not abandoned in Sheol, and whose flesh did not see decay. God raised up this Yah-Usha, and we are all witnesses of it. Moreover, he has been exalted to the right hand of God, has received from the Father what he promised, namely, the Ruach HaKodesh, and has poured out this gift, which you are both seeing and hearing. For David did not ascend into heaven, but he says, Yahweh said to my Lord, sit at my right hand, until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet. Therefore, let the whole house of Israel know beyond doubt that God has made him both Lord and Messiah, this Yah-Usha, whom you executed on a stake. On hearing this, they were stung in their hearts, and they said to Kepha and the other emissaries, Brothers, what should we do? Kepha answered them, Turn from sin, return to God, and each of you be immersed on the authority of Yah-Usha the Messiah into forgiveness of your sins, and you will receive the gift of the Ruach HaKodesh. For the promise is for you, for your children, and for those far away, as many as Yahweh, our God, may call. He pressed his case with many other arguments, and kept pleading with them, Save yourselves from this perverse generation. So those who accepted what he said were immersed, and there were added to the group that day about 3,000 people. They continued faithfully in the teaching of the emissaries, in fellowship, in breaking bread, and in the prayers. Everyone was filled with awe, and many miracles and signs took place through the emissaries. All those trusting in Yah-Usha stayed together and had everything in common. In fact, they sold their property and possessions and distributed the proceeds to all who were in need. Continuing faithfully and with singleness of purpose to meet in the temple courts daily, and breaking bread in their several homes, they shared their food in joy and simplicity of heart, praising God and having the respect of all the people. And day after day, the Lord kept adding to them those who were being saved. I'm going to read one more chapter. Chapter 3. One afternoon at 3 o'clock, the hour of Mincha prayers, as Kepha and Yochanan were going up to the temple, a man crippled since birth was being carried in. Every day, people used to put him at the beautiful gate of the temple, so that he could beg from those going into the temple court. When he saw Kepha and Yochanan about to enter, he asked them for some money. But they stared straight at him, and Kepha said, Look at us. The crippled man fixed his attention on them, expecting to receive something from them. Kepha said, I don't have silver, and I don't have gold, but what I do have, I give to you. In the name of the Messiah, Yah-Usha of Nazareth, walk. And taking hold of him by his right hand, Kapha pulled him up. Instantly his feet and ankles became strong, so that he sprang up, stood a moment, and began walking. Then he entered the temple court with them, walking and leaping and praising God. Everyone saw him walking and praising God. They recognized him as the same man who had formerly sat begging at the beautiful gate of the temple, and they were utterly amazed and confounded at what had happened to him. While he clung to Kapha and Yochanan, all the people came, running in astonishment toward them in Shlomo's colonnade. Seeing this, Kapha addressed the people. Men of Israel, why are you amazed at this? Or why do you stare at us as if we had made this man walk through some power or godliness of our own? The God of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, the God of our fathers, has glorified his servant Yah-Usha, the same Yah-Usha you handed over and disowned before Pilate, even after he had decided to release him. You denied the holy and innocent one, and instead asked for the reprieve of a murderer. Reprieve of a murderer. You killed the author of life. But God has raised him from the dead. Of this we are witnesses. And it is through putting trust in his name that his name has given strength to this man whom you see and know. Yes, it is the trust that comes through Yah-Usha which has given him this perfect healing in the presence of you all. Now, brothers, I know that you did not understand the significance of what you were doing, neither did your leaders. But this is how God fulfilled what he had announced in advance when he spoke through all the prophets, namely, that his Messiah was to die. Therefore, repent and turn to God, so that your sins may be erased, so that times of refreshing may come from the Lord's presence, and he may send the Messiah appointed in advance for you, that is, Yah-Usha. He has to remain in heaven until the time comes for restoring everything, as God said long ago when he spoke through the holy prophets. For Moshe himself said, Yahweh will raise up for you a prophet like me from among your brothers. You are to listen to everything he tells you. Everyone who fails to listen to that prophet will be removed from the people and destroyed. Indeed, all the prophets announced these days, starting with Shemuel and continuing through all who followed. You are the sons of the prophets, and you are included in the covenant which God made with our fathers when he said to Abraham, by your seed will all the families of the earth be blessed. So it is to you first that God has sent his servant, whom he has raised up, so that he might bless you by turning each one of you from your evil ways. Okay. Alright, so that's it for the New Testament. Let's see. I'll do Old Testament. Oh yeah, I could do this. So it's now Genesis chapter 18. Genesis chapter 18, Parashah 4. Vayera, he appeared. Yahweh appeared to Abraham by the oaks of Mamre, as he sat at the entrance to the tent during the heat of the day. He raised his eyes and looked, and there in front of him stood 3 men. On seeing them, he ran from the tent door to meet them, prostrated himself on the ground, and said, "My lord, if I have found favor in your sight, please don't leave your servant. Please let me send for some water, so that you can wash your feet. Then rest under the tree, and I will bring a piece of bread. Now that you have come to your servant, refresh yourselves before going on." "Very well," they replied. "Do what you have said." Abraham hurried into the tent to Sarah and said, "Quickly, 3 measures of the best flour. Knead it and make cakes." Abraham ran to the herd, took a good, tender calf, and gave it to the servant, who hurried her. Sorry, I'll read it again. Abraham ran to the herd, took a good, tender calf, and gave it to the servant, who hurried to prepare it. Then he took curd, milk, and the calf which he had prepared, and set it all before the men. And he stood by them under the tree as they ate. They said to him, "Where is Sarah, your wife?" He said, "There, in the tent." He said, "I will certainly return to you around this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son." Sarah heard him from the entrance of the tent behind him. Abraham and Sarah were old, advanced in years. Sarah was past the age of childbearing, so Sarah laughed to herself, thinking, "I am old, and so is my Lord. Am I to have pleasure again?" Yahweh said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh and ask, 'Am I really going to bear a child when I am so old?' Is anything too hard for Yahweh? At the time set for it, at this season next year, I will return to you, and Sarah will have a son." Sarah denied it, saying, "I didn't either laugh," because she was afraid. He said, "Not so, you did laugh." The men set out from there and looked over toward Sodom, and Abraham went with them to see them on their way. Yahweh said, "Should I hide from Abraham what I am about to do? Inasmuch as Abraham is sure to become a great and strong nation, and all the nations of the earth will be blessed by him. For I have made myself known to him, so that he will give orders to his children and to his household after him to keep the way of Yahweh and to do what is right and just, so that Yahweh may bring about for Abraham what he has promised him." Yahweh said, "The outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great and their sin so serious, that I will now go down and see whether their deeds warrant the outcry that has reached me. If not, I will know." The men turned away from there and went toward Sodom, but Abraham remained standing before Yahweh. Abraham approached and said, "Will you actually sweep away the righteous with the wicked? Maybe there are 50 righteous people in the city. Will you actually sweep the place away and not forgive it for the sake of the 50 righteous who are there? Far be it from you to do such a thing, to kill the righteous along with the wicked, so that the righteous and the wicked are treated alike. Far be it from you. Shouldn't the judge of all the earth do what is just?" Yahweh said, "If I find in Sodom 50 who are righteous, then I will forgive the whole place for their sake." Abraham answered, "Hear now, I, who am but dust and ashes, have taken it upon myself to speak to Yahweh. What if there are 5 less than 50 righteous?" He said, "I won't destroy it if I find 45 there." He spoke to him yet again. "What if 40 are found there?" He said, "For the sake of the 40, I won't do it." He said, "I hope Yahweh won't be angry if I speak. What if 30 are found there?" He said, "I won't do it if I find 30 there." He said, "Hear now, I have taken it upon myself to speak to Yahweh. What if 20 are found there?" He said, "For the sake of the 20, I won't destroy it." He said, "I hope Yahweh won't be angry if I speak just once more. What if 10 are found there?" He said, "For the sake of the 10, I won't destroy it." Yahweh went on his way as soon as he had finished speaking to Abraham, and Abraham returned to his place. Chapter 19. The 2 angels came to Sodom that evening. When Lot was sitting at the gate of Sodom, Lot saw them, got up to greet them, and prostrated himself on the ground. He said, "Hear now, my lords, please come over to your servant's house, spend the night, wash your feet, get up early, and go on your way." "No," they answered, "we'll stay in the square." But he kept pressing them, so they went home with him, and he made them a meal, baking matzah for their supper, which they ate. But before they could go to bed, the men of the city surrounded the house, young and old, everyone from every neighborhood of Sodom. They called Lot and said to him, "Where are the men who came to stay with you tonight? Bring them out to us. We want to have sex with them." Lot went out to them and stood in the doorway, closing the door behind him, and said, "Please, my brothers, don't do such a wicked thing. Look here, I have 2 daughters who are virgins. Please, let me bring them out to you, and you can do with them what seems good to you. But don't do anything to these men, since they are guests in my house." "Stand back," they replied. "This guy came to live here, and now has decided to play judge. For that, we'll deal worse with you than with them." Then they crowded in on Lot in order to get close enough to break down the door. But the men inside reached out their hands, brought Lot into the house to them, and shut the door. Then they struck the men at the door of the house with blindness, both small and great, so that they couldn't find the doorway. The men said to Lot, "Do you have any people here besides yourself? Whomever you have in the city, son-in-law, your sons, your daughters, bring them out of this place, because we are going to destroy it." Yahweh has become aware of the great outcry against them and Yahweh has sent us to destroy it. Lot went out and spoke with his sons-in-law, who had married his daughters, and said, "Get up and leave this place, because Yahweh is going to destroy the city." But his sons-in-law didn't take him seriously. When morning came, the angels told Lot to hurry. "Get up," they said, "and take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here. Otherwise you will be swept away in the punishment of the city." But he dallied. So the man took hold of his hand, his wife's hand, and the hands of his 2 daughters. Yahweh was being merciful to him, and led them, leaving them outside the city. When they had brought them out, he said, "Flee for your life. Don't look behind you, and don't stop anywhere in the plain, but escape to the hills. Otherwise you will be swept away." Lot said to them, "Please, no, my lord. Here, your servant has already found favor in your sight, and you have shown me even greater mercy by saving my life. But I can't escape to the hills, because I'm afraid the disaster will overtake me and I will die. Look, there's a town nearby to flee to, and it's a small one. Please let me escape there. Isn't it just a small one? And that way I will stay alive." He replied, "All right, I agree to what you have asked. I won't overthrow the city of which you have spoken. Hurry and escape to that place, because I can't do anything until you arrive there." For this reason, the city was named Zoal, small. By the time Lot had come to Zoal, the sun had risen over the land. Then Yahweh caused sulfur and fire to rain down upon Sodom and Amorah from Yahweh out of the sky. He overthrew those cities, the entire plain, all the inhabitants of the cities, and everything growing in the ground. But his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a column of salt. Abraham got up early in the morning, went to the place where he had stood before Yahweh, and looked down toward Sodom and Amorah, scanning the entire plain. There before him the smoke was rising from the land like smoke from a furnace. But when God destroyed the cities of the plain, he remembered Abraham and sent Lot out, away from the destruction, when he overthrew the cities in which Lot lived. Lot went up from Zoar and lived in the hills with his 2 daughters, because he was afraid to stay in Zoar. He and his 2 daughters lived in a cave. The firstborn said to the younger, "Our father is old, and there isn't a man on earth to come in to us in the manner customary in the world. Come, let's have our father drink wine, then we'll sleep with him, and that way we'll enable our father to have descendants." So they plied their father with wine that night, and the older one went in and slept with her father. He didn't know when she lay down or when she got up. The following day the older said to the younger, "Here, I slept last night with my father. Let's make him drink wine again tonight, and you go in and sleep with him, and that way we'll enable our father to have descendants." They plied their father with wine that night also, and the younger one got up and slept with him, and he didn't know when she lay down or when she got up. Thus both the daughters of Lot became pregnant by their father. The older one gave birth to a son and called him Moab. He is the ancestor of Moab to this day. The younger also gave birth to a son, and she called him Benjamin. He is the ancestor of the people of Ameyn to this day. I'm a little tired. Okay, last chapter. Chapter 20. Abraham traveled from there toward the Negev and lived between Kadesh and Shur. While living as an alien in Gerar, Abraham was saying of Sarah his wife, "She is my sister." So Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent and took Sarah. But God came to Abimelech in a dream one night and said to him, "You are about to die because of the woman you have taken, since she is someone's wife." Now Abimelech had not come near her, so he said, "Lord, will you kill even an upright nation?" Didn't he himself say to me, "She is my sister"? And even she herself said, "He's my brother." In doing this, my heart has been pure and my hands innocent. God said to him in the dream, "Yes, I know that in doing this, your heart has been pure, and I too have kept you from sinning against me. This is why I didn't let you touch her. Therefore, return the man's wife to him now. He's a prophet, and he will pray for you, so that you will live. But if you don't return her, know that you will certainly die, you and all who belong to you." Abimelech got up early in the morning, called all his servants, and told them these things. And the men became very afraid. Then Abimelech called Abraham and said to him, "What have you done to us? How have I sinned against you to cause you to bring on me and my kingdom a great sin? You have done things to me that are just not done." Abimelech went on, asking Abraham, "Whatever could have caused you to do such a thing?" Abraham replied, "It was because I thought, there could not possibly be any fear of God in this place, so they will kill me in order to get my wife. But she actually is also my sister, the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother, and so she became my wife. When God had me leave my father's house, I told her, 'Do me this favor. Wherever we go, say about me, he's my brother.'" Abimelech took sheep, cattle, and male and female slaves, and gave them to Abraham. And he returned to him Sarah his wife. Then Abimelech said, "Look, my country lies before you. Live where you like." To Sarah he said, "Here, I have given your brother 1,000 pieces of silver. That will allay the suspicions of everyone who is with you. Before everyone you are cleared." Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech and his wife and slave girls, so that they could have children. For Yahweh had made every woman in Abimelech's household infertile on account of Sarah, Abraham's wife. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much. So Genesis 20, 18 to 20. Alright, I'm gonna try to do ASMR. I got nothing better to do. Namaste. Thank you very much.